Okay, I believe we're live on the internet, Mandy. I'm not 100% sure. But hello, internet. Welcome to San Francisco. My name is Chris. I work with UnCollege here with the rest of the team. This is actually our third live Q&A of the year. Before we get going on this one, which is called Gap Year Essentials, where we talk to experts like Mandy here from GoOverseas, I just wanted to do a quick recap of what we did in the first two broadcasts. So if you're interested, you can go back and give those a watch and learn a couple new things. The first one highlights the UnCollege Gap Year program. That is what we do here in San Francisco. So if you want to learn more about what our curriculum does, who our coaches are, where you can go on our international service learning projects, you can check that out. In the second broadcast, we just went straight to the students. We brought in 2 students in the last 5 years that have gone on a gap year and let them talk about their experience. Nothing necessarily to do with the UnCollege Gap Year program, but the thought process leading up to taking a gap year, planning a gap year, being a student and being on the road during the gap year, and then of course what they've done since the gap year. So that's what happened in the first 2 live broadcasts. Today we are talking about gap year essentials. Why are they great? Why are they beneficial? What kind of options are out there? What else are you going to talk about, Mandy? This is Mandy from GoOverseas here.
What kind of options are out there and the different activities, lengths, locations that you can choose from. And then once you have that full gamut in front of you, how to pick the right program for you. And once you pick a program, it's a lot of utilizing those resources to do the right research in preparation and learning about how to make sure you're on the right track for your gap year ahead. And then after you finish preparing, how to then utilize that gap year experience for post-program.
Awesome. So yeah, we have 3 segments. We have 10 gap year facts, which I'm going to run through with you. Then Mandy's going to go into her half. And then we're going to have the live Q&A where you guys on the internet can chime in and ask any questions you may have about gap years. To do that, you can submit questions in 2 ways. One way is via Twitter. So if you just tag at UnCollege or at GoOverseas, our friend Juliana in the back here will flag those and put them in the question queue. The other way you can do that is on our Facebook page. That's UnCollege Facebook page, as well as the group. So we do have a live event page there. Resources that we mention during the program here will be listed in that event page. So if you hear us talk about some statistic or some program, we'll be happy to drop that in after the broadcast. Great. Anything you want to add before we get going here?
Let's get started.
Let's run through this thing. Today I'm going to talk a lot about a report that came out a little while ago by the AGA, which is the American Gap Association. It looks kind of boring and thick like this. It is not. It is fascinating. So what I'm going to do is basically pull my 10 favorite facts about gap years from this, and then shed a little insight on what we've seen talking to students every day on the phone that want to take a gap year or have no idea what that is, or how they can talk to their parents about the benefits. So I'll start out with one of my favorites here, which is over 50% of people that take a gap year between high school and college actually have a GPA that's above a 3.0. The majority do. I think the most popular person we've heard of taking a gap year recently is Obama's daughter, right? Malia is taking a gap year. She is probably a stellar student. So there is this idea out there that you take a gap year when you're not qualified to go to college, and that couldn't be further from the truth. The stat is actually over 50% of students who participate in a gap year have an A- or higher. So that is extremely high. So it's not an alternative. It's not a substitute for a 4-year academic experience. It can be a great supplement to that. People of all economic backgrounds are taking them. It's not something that just wealthy families do. The stats show that across the board, people are looking in and taking gap years. So that was one that kind of popped out at me as it's something that's different. Do you think the parents are educated or not so educated when referring their own sons and daughters to gap year programs?
I think for the most part, for the majority of parents out there, they're not very educated on exactly what a gap year is and what it entails. I think that is improving a lot, but I think there's a lot of fear still around, will my student eventually go to college? Will they get distracted and kind of just use this year off to remain off? But I think, like you said, Malia choosing to do a gap year and the President of the United States advocating and supporting her is a huge example for parents out there that this is not a year off at all. It's a supplement. It's not something to be feared or deterred. It's a really incredible experience that every high school student should at least be given the option to pursue.
Yeah, and actually 80% of parents that are influencing the decision to take a gap year have bachelor's degrees. Mm-hmm. So people that have gone to college and gotten that degree are still recommending that their sons and daughters do a gap year. And maybe that's because they didn't get to travel enough. As someone who's been lucky enough to take, I did not take a gap year before college, but I like to say I took 2 right after and taught abroad. That opportunity to travel and to experience things while you're young is something that we hear all the time. It's almost a cliche now, but parents are saying, listen, 80% of them are saying you should do something like a gap year program where you get to experience those things while you're young. Number 4, awesome stat number 4. 77% of people took a gap year between high school and college. That kind of plays off of the point that we were just talking about. It's an opportune time to do so. When you're 18, you are a legal adult. You may not know exactly what you want to study in college. It's just a good time, and most people are capitalizing on that. 16% are taking a gap year during college, so they're arriving. They're not feeling very driven. They feel like they're kind of lacking direction, and then they end up going the gap year route. So the majority are finishing out high school and are in college. The average experience score. So in this survey, they asked gap year participants, how happy were you with your gap year overall? And these are gap year alumni, so maybe they're several years removed from their experience. But they gave it a 9.43 out of 10. So if you're doubting your gap year choice, the people out there are definitely. I don't. Rarely you see anything above 80 on these kind of national blind surveys. So I thought that one really stuck out to me. The majority of participants stated that their gap year had a huge impact on their personal and career, their personal life and career. And this one had so many positive stats that I actually printed it out and put it on this beautiful, beautiful card here.
That's difficult to read.
Yes, impossible to read here. You can find it in this gap year report. But I want to read off my top 5s from here.
As you should, please.
98% said or agreed with when asked that a gap year helped me develop as a person. 96% said it increased my self-confidence. 93% said helped me develop communication skills. And my personal favorite, 84, said help me acquire skills to be successful in my career. So, not a year off. Definitely a year on when we're talking about skill development. So once again, lots of goodies in here. Lots of goodies. Ethan's probably so excited I'm reading this stuff out.
I'm sure he's very, very pleased.
How many years... Well, I'll give you this stat. If only 40% of students are graduating college in 4 years, how many percent of gap year participants do you think are graduating in 4 years?
A very high percentage. I mean, all the stats and studies that I've read show that having that break in between high school and college allows the student to come back more intentional about their degree and more focused and more driven, instead of just kind of like following the sheep from high school to college to job. Gap year students are questioning what they want out of their career and what they want out of their life, and having that time and space to really indulge in that gives them a very clear intent on, okay, this is what I want, now I'm going to go back to school and really pursue that with a drive that a lot of students who don't take gap years just are lacking. So if I were to throw out a guess, maybe like probably of that 40%, I would probably say 80% have taken a gap year.
Mandy's pretty spot on as usual. I don't actually have the exact percentage stat. I do have that the average amount of years for a gap student is about right at 4.
Okay.
So, yeah, they are going out. And it's funny, I have a family member who works at a university, and the college that she works at doesn't take transfer students in this particular small college within the university, but they take gap year students every time because they do have that drive. They have at least taken 9 months to think about what they want to do, and I think that's important. Following up on those stats, though, so it is true, only about 40% of students that go in freshman year are making it out in 4 years, and actually only 1/3 of college freshmen don't make it back for the sophomore year. It doesn't mean they're not graduating, but they're just not returning. So that is a staggering statistic.
But not surprising.
Not surprising. I think, there's a lot to consider. We have how much college costs.
Right.
We have a course catalog that can be overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just trying to make those very adult decisions at 17 years old is really tough. And so once they kind of start moving along that path, I'm sure there's a lot of questions and a lot of doubt that come up that result in them not coming back for their second year.
Yeah. All right, this next one is a huge surprise to me. I am 28 years old, and I would say that if I had to poll my friends, about 40, maybe between the 40 and 60 range, would say that they are happy professionally. We're millennials. We're kind of trained to want more and more, and that's a good or bad thing depending on who you talk to.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, between 40, 50, 60% range, that's where I would say people are happy with their employment. 88% of people who were polled that have taken a gap year said they are satisfied with employment.
Wow.
There's a lot of factors that could play there. I think, one of the things that we highlighted at UnCollege is self-reflection, and that needs to be part of every learning process. And I think gap year, no matter where you take one, helps you do that and helps you focus on you when you're not thinking about, am I going to get an A on this college test, and thinking about where you're going to go academically.
Right.
Cool. Almost through my 10. Guys. I know you guys are like, can we hear from Mandy now?
My nuggets of wisdom.
Okay. Number 9, college transfer rates are lower amongst gap year participants. That stat is actually looking directly at people that are going from high school to college. So that 77% that are choosing to do a gap year in between high school and college is based off of those people. So we're just not seeing people. A college transfer can be done for many reasons. One could be homesickness. One could be deciding to pursue a different major at a different school that's better for that. But another one is just a shot in the dark. This university is not working out for me. I'll go try another one. And what we're finding is that if you're figuring out more about yourself and what you want to do during a gap year, the odds of you, throwing that dart at the dartboard are far less.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to my point about the intention behind knowing what you want to study and where you want to study, and having that time to kind of process and self-reflect allows you to be more clear about that goal. So, yeah, it makes total sense that there's less transfer after having a whole year to figure those things out without worrying about getting a high score on the SATs or, writing college transcripts or things like that.
Awesome. Yeah, stat once again verified by Mandy. All right, count it. My 10th and final stat here, guys. There is a higher civic engagement rate, meaning more people that take a gap year are more likely to vote in elections. They are more likely to say they volunteered in the last month. Actually, 89% of people in the survey said they volunteered in the last month. And maybe a lot of people don't care about that, but to me, part of becoming a global citizen is being able to view other people's situations and then feeling something there and potentially being able to help out and have that worldly view. So that one is a random stat, but it's also not surprising that people have, when people go abroad, as you'll talk about, a lot of them volunteer, a lot of them give back to communities, and that is not something that goes away, apparently, according to this survey.
Right, yeah.
Awesome. Well, once again, guys, that's it for my part of the show here. I'm going to hand it over to Mandy to take over the conversation. But if you want to submit your questions, if you have questions about this survey that we've been checking out, tweet it at UnCollege or at GoOverseas or both, or put it on our Facebook page. Juliana is going to put all those questions into a queue, and I promise we will get to them right after Mandy goes through all the awesome content she has. So take it away.
Thank you. So once again, I'm Mandy. I work for GoOverseas.com. We are a review site for all kinds of international programs, including study abroad, volunteer, intern, and happily gap year. And gap year is an industry that's near and dear to my heart. Like Chris, I didn't take a gap year right after high school, but I luckily got to travel a lot after college and kind of an extended 4-year-ish gap year.
Yes.
So I'm a huge advocate. And it's really exciting to be in this industry and hear people like Malia Obama deciding to take a gap year is just a huge win for us, and we're really excited to expand on that. So now that you've heard some of the really interesting, intriguing insights and stats around gap year and some of the benefits that go along with choosing to take that route, I'll start talking about some of the different kinds of programs that are out there, different options and activities and different lengths and locations, and there's all sorts of things that need to be considered when you're choosing a gap year. So some of the more popular ones are a little more structured around either a semester or a year-long program, and this very much aligns with continuing your education at a university. You can either defer for a semester for a year and then go on a gap year program for 3 months, or if you're looking for something a little longer, there's also year programs, and there's also programs that are just a few weeks long as well. If that fits in better with your goals and your drive and your mission, then it can really be anything that you make it. A lot of these programs are highly structured, and that's what I think one of the connotations of a gap year is, that it's kind of like, people just hanging out and sitting on a beach and not pursuing a direct goal. But there's a lot of programs out there that do offer a lot of support and a lot of structure, and they kind of gear you towards maybe volunteering for a couple months or working in an internship and gaining skills that you wouldn't necessarily have typically going into college. There's lots of ways to expand on these skills and to try new things, and that results in, again, like being more clear about what you want to study and how you want to pursue your academic careers once you finish this gap year. There's also a lot of intangible things that you can learn. There's a resiliency and a self-dependency that you get from kind of allowing yourself to expand and do the rigor of academic structure. Some of the different activities, like I mentioned, interning and volunteering, but there's also lots of cultural components to taking a gap year. There can be sports and activities involved, paddleboarding and kayaking and hiking and backpacking. There's so many things that you can do, and there's a lot of different programs that adhere to anything you're interested in. One really cool component that I wish I'd done is an outdoor training gap year, where you can kind of just like be immersed in nature and take that time to just get in touch with yourself and do a lot of self-reflection that otherwise you wouldn't have the time to do if you're preparing to go to college and you're finishing up your high school career and trying to get the best SAT score. You're not thinking about how can I get in touch with nature and
Right. I think in the U.S. that's actually what we've considered the gap year for a long time, and there's value in that kind of more traditional year, and I think, once again, the data shows that is the most popular choice in the U.S. is to do something like that. And when we go abroad, that's when we kind of see more of the volunteer. But yeah, there's a lot of hidden value that I think, looking back at myself at 17, 18, I'm maybe not thinking about that.
Right.
But now here we are, whatever, a decade later, geez. And those are the most important things a lot of the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, and sometimes it's tough to have that perspective from 17 to understand that that's what's really important. But, I mean, the more articles and content that's published helps them be self-aware of that, and hopefully getting more parents to buy in on the concept of a gap year will then start to, help their young students be more geared towards making that a priority.
Internet, if you've taken a gap year, blog about it. Kids will
get the
read
word
it.
out. Yeah. And so a couple of the top locations that I've noticed being in the gap year industry is a lot of students migrate towards Costa Rica or Thailand or Australia, and those three are really popular for the reasons that they do offer a very different cultural experience while still having some sort of security. Costa Rica is really close to America, and there's a lot of expats that live there, so it's more comfortable. And especially from a parent perspective, it's hard to let your 17-year-old go to the jungles of Africa, especially if you've never been one to travel yourself. It's really tough to kind of snap that umbilical cord and let your student go off with people you don't know, and to a program that you've never been on yourself. And so I think a lot of parents and students gear more towards the more the countries that have a higher tourism industry and just seem a little more secure and a little more safe. And Australia too, it's English speaking, but it has a lot of culture and a lot of high adventure that's really attractive to young people. So moving on so now that we have this understanding of all the different types of programs that are out there, how do you pick the right one? Which is a really fair question.
Actually, there's a few questions that have, that we have in the queue that are about that, and I think so. For you guys that did put that out there, this one's for you. That's a hard question to answer.
Yeah, and it's really intimidating.
I'm curious to see how you're gonna answer it.
No pressure.
Yeah.
Just like choosing a college, it can be intimidating to kind of figure out what you want. But luckily, most of the programs out there allow for some flexibility and a range of different interests and avenues for you to go down. So I think it's important to think about your goals, and if going to college is something that you absolutely want to pursue in the future, then have that in your mindset while you're trying to think of a program, because there's a lot of universities, a lot of colleges out there that help incorporate gap years right into their program at places like Harvard and Princeton and Tufts and UNC Chapel Hill, which are all very prestigious schools, but they do incorporate a gap year into the freshman experience if you decided to defer, or if you have a delayed acceptance. They do offer programs that allow you to still continue in a somewhat academic field while having flexibility to travel internationally or to pursue an internship or to do something that's a little out of the...
Right. We were talking about Malia Obama earlier. Mm-hmm. She's going to Harvard. Harvard, when you're accepted, they send you a letter and say congratulations, but they also encourage every student to defer for a year. And they don't want you to go sign up and go to Princeton, but they do want you to spend some time on a project or take a gap year or participate in an internship or do something before jumping back into academia.
Yeah. And, if going to college is something that's not really on your radar right now and you'd like more time to stop and reflect and think about what you want, then that's totally fine too. And there's definitely programs that accommodate to that. And, maybe you want to go into trade and do something entirely different. College isn't necessarily for everyone. So it's important to kind of accept that a gap year is a very viable second option. You don't have to go immediately into school. The level of structure, I think, is another important component to consider while you're picking a program. There's some programs that, they have the tour leader with you at all times, and they have the entire program structured from the day you leave until the day you get back, and there's always someone that's kind of coaching you into the right direction and supervising and helping you get through some of the cultural obstacles that you might face. And there's other ones that are a little more hands-off and allow you to explore on your own, allow you to get to know the neighborhood that you're in, get to know the language that you're in. And those are definitely for the more independent, self-dependent students out there, which is important to kind of decide for yourself, like what makes you comfortable and what will give you the right balance of support while allowing you to kind of expand. And
yeah, it's a tricky business. I mean, at UnCollege, right, we do a 9-month program, and it's for self-directed learners. Mm-hmm. So people that are very proactive and are driving their own education. So they want that independence, but they also need the structure. They need the coaching. They need the facilitation, and that's what they're asking for. They're asking for, similar to a gym membership with a personal trainer, they want someone to kind of help them stay accountable for what they want to do with this year.
Yeah.
Because, as Mandy was touching on earlier, it's very easy to take a year off. Like, there is some accountability and some responsibility on the student's side that they have to say, this is what I want to do, and they have to ask themselves those questions of, what am I trying to achieve during the year? Right. What am I really doing here? And I think if you come into it blindly, it could be very hard to have a productive year. Like, you're going to have to turn it around quickly. If you're applying to UnCollege, that's what we look for in the application, is that you've been thinking about these things, and then you show the ability to be proactive. But it is a responsibility on the student's behalf. And 16, 17, 18-year-olds making these difficult, or asking themselves these difficult questions and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think another component is the level of cultural immersion that you're looking for, which kind of goes along with the structure. If you're someone who's really interested in just being in a different country and learning about how this culture works and how the government works and how the family structure is set up and how they use their language, and there's a lot of programs that are way more heavily immersive and allow you to become part of the community. And I think a lot of that would probably inevitably involve a volunteer type component that allows you to kind of step outside the traditional tourist boundaries and get to know the community and figure out ways to incorporate yourself into that community, which also goes along with a language component. If you know that language is something that you really want to work on, then you can definitely focus and kind of gear your gap year choice around a program that values being immersed in the community and learning that language, because it's really hard to be immersed when you can't communicate with people around you. And so if you are in the category of someone who knows that they do eventually want to go to college, and maybe you're clear-headed enough to even know what you want to study, then you can pick a program that involves those skills. If you know that eventually you want to go into pre-med, you can look into ways to volunteer at a clinic or volunteer at a hospital, to kind of, well, first of all, verify that, yes, that's the direction you want to go in, and that will give you a little taste of maybe a particular aspect of pre-med that you're very interested in. And so that when you do go back to school, you are 100% sure, well, we won't say 100%, maybe 90% sure. You're still allowed to change your mind. But much more sure than you would have been had you not taken this gap year ahead of time. I think another important thing to consider is a gap year doesn't have to be international. There's plenty of students who just move to a different city and kind of just figure things out on their own, just like any other college student who's going off without their parents for the first time. They have to figure things out, like how to pay rent and how to navigate a new city and how to make new friends. And those are all really, really important lifelong skills that you learn from a young age. But it's done in the context of, I'm not under pressure to make sure I get great grades and, make sure that this is the right decision for me because it's temporary. And you're allowed to relax in the fact that it doesn't have to be forever. Like this can be just temporary. I can just trying this out. I don't have to make the next 4 years of my life set in stone around this decision.
Yeah. I don't know if you're going to jump in this later, but I mean, we're talking about so many different options. I mean, volunteering abroad, staying in country, not being that person that goes to the person that goes abroad but doesn't go to the country where they don't speak the language and get completely lost in their first international experience, or going it alone, or doing an internship or something like that. What's the best way to and there's a lot of options out there for people. Like, what's the best way to vet those programs? And if I'm especially, I could see parents being like, my son or daughter found this program that looks like it's a 1995 website and it's in Bali. What do I do? How do you guys help people kind of navigate those waters?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the best ways to do that is through a review site like GoOverseas. We pride ourselves on being kind of this neutral middle ground in between all kinds of gap year programs. And we encourage every alumni to leave a review and kind of provide their testimony of how their experience went. And that kind of makes GoOverseas this unbiased resource for parents or students or counselors or anyone looking for a gap year program who can see firsthand or see from people who've been there firsthand what the experience is actually like. If it's actually legitimate, is my student going to be taken care of, and all of that should be, you should be able to read that through the reviews. And there's also a couple other accreditation organizations like American Gap Association, which Chris was reading from Ethan's AGA survey earlier, and they take a lot of time to accredit different gap year programs, and it's a really rigorous process, actually.
Right, and you have to fit the traditional definition of a gap year, which UnCollege, being a program that is a hybrid of personal and professional growth, we're not sending people abroad and doing that. Doesn't quite fit the current definition. We're working with them, but you're right. It's absolutely rigorous. And what else is rigorous is submitting a review on GoOverseas, but in a good way. It's pretty hard to find a review that isn't thorough and well thought out and real. Most importantly, real.
Exactly.
Fellows who participated in our program know I've asked them if they want to leave a review, and I think they all do, but it can take a little while to get through it. So the ones that you have on there are hard fought because they've had to put a lot of time and they've got to upload photos and they have to really give you an amazing glimpse into their year and kind of invite you to explore that experience with them. So yeah, those reviews are amazing, and the AGA requirements, if you're an AGA program, you've had someone come check on you and you've jumped through a lot of different hoops.
Great, and then GoOverseas also has forums and question and answer boards that allow, if a student or a parent does still have a question and there's some piece of information that they're just not getting from their research or from their reviews, that we do allow them to answer or to ask questions directly on our site. And that question goes to all the alumni and all of the providers and all the other stakeholders that are involved in that program. And all of us are 100% committed to making sure that you are finding those answers, and that going into sending your student on a gap year is not a blind process at all, but you're fully aware and have all the information right at your fingertips, which is really important, I think, in order to best support your student. There's also this emergence of gap year counselors, who are building careers over finding out the best, most vetted programs out there, and then helping students that come to them for advice pick which programs are good for them. And some of these gap year counselors have actually participated in the gap year program, so they have all of this wealth of experience of what programs entail and what it takes to apply to them, and how reliable they really are. So that's another really interesting way for parents to feel confident about helping their students make a decision to go on a gap year, is by using one of these counselors as a huge source of advice. One thing I wanted to touch on with choosing the right program is price is a huge problem that a lot of parents talk about, and there's a lot of different programs that can be on the lower end of the spectrum that are typically less hands-on. They allow the student to be more independent, But that also means that they're not getting a huge level of support that might make some parents feel more comfortable. But there are programs out there that can. I mean, there's a New York Times article just published recently about the huge expense of some of these gap year programs.
Right. And I've been to a gap year fair. Won't name any names, but some of them are amazing. They sound like my ideal year, even as a 28-year-old adult.
Yeah.
But they're in the $55,000, $65,000 range.
Easily.
That that is a year of college.
Exactly.
At a private school.
Exactly. So it is a big deterrent for some students trying to consider a gap year is the price that's involved. But there are ways around that. There's scholarships, and there's ones that don't cost the price of a year at Harvard. And there's also ways to combine working, or even spending half of your gap year working under a working holiday visa or working somewhere in the United States, and then saving up to then go on a more elaborate, adventurous gap year trip.
Right.
So if that's something that you for sure are trying to pursue, there are ways to get around that big price obstacle. Yeah.
That's actually one of our questions.
Okay.
That one, actually, I don't know where that one came in from, but it is. Do you want to transfer the questions? Should we wait a little bit?
No,
Yeah.
if it's relevant,
It is relevant.
We can do it right now.
Okay. How do students fund their gap years?
Mm-hmm.
Do you offer any options for students who seek financial aid?
So GoOverseas does offer a smaller scholarship, $500. We offer that twice a year for students looking to volunteer or go on a gap year abroad. And I think since it is still such a new component of this international program industry, that finding scholarships will be a little more difficult, at least at this point.
And I wouldn't necessarily say it's GoOverseas' job. I think your guys' job, I mean, you guys do a lot of things, but is a lot on the education side. First and foremost is teaching people about the programs, and then the programs should be offering some scholarships as well, and I think they do. You know, I know we do. We offer different scholarships based on our kind of core pillars. So if we think that you fit kind of the UnCollege model, then we do scholarships. We also do scholarships for people that are college bound and they just have that direction. They know what they want to do at the next stage. But I think that's more on a program by program question. Are people doing that?
It's at the universities that are supporting programs and offering their own gap year programs. I know that they also have scholarships for some students choosing to go that route as well. So funding is absolutely possible. And you just have to be kind of crafty.
Yeah. I've also seen there's a newer platform out there for students that's kind of up and coming called GoEnounce, and I think the thing that they do best is fundraising on the platform. So whether that's for your 4-year university, for your gap year, or for your online education and different things, they let you build kind of a super low interest fundraising platform campaign. So there are definitely options out there for people that really want to take gap year and are looking at the finances and saying, I'm not so sure. Well, there's also probably some volunteer options that you're almost breaking even potentially.
Right.
I don't know. I haven't actually looked into those in a bit, but
yeah, definitely. I mean, especially if you combine that with working for a few months ahead of time and then decide to go volunteer. A lot of those volunteer positions aren't paid, but there are very inexpensive ways to basically you just have to pay for your flight, and then they'll take care of all your housing in return for being able to go volunteer. And that can be with a structured program, or it can be like a work-away or a WOOF experience or HelpX. There's a lot of different ways to kind of at least cheaply get by if just traveling abroad is one of your main goals.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. So taking the right steps to prepare for a gap year and beyond. So you say you're a student, you've kind of done this research and you've kind of whittled down what you want to do and how you want to do it. So a huge step with this is talking to your parents and explaining with them and being clear with them about what your goals are and what your mission is with going on a gap year, because like we said, there's a lot of parents who are really reluctant to let their student step away and go so far and defer their first year of college. So it's important to just talk to them and be open with them and listen to their ideas, because ultimately they're going to be your biggest supporters in trying to make this happen. Talking with your school guidance counselors is another great outlet as well. They can kind of help you figure out how you want to gear your gap year, whether it should be more academic, more structured, or if it should incorporate volunteering or a job. They can be a huge information source for you. GoOverseas has tons of articles on our gap year article section with how-tos and ways to prepare and what you should bring and what things that you can consider while you're going, and also some pretty interesting articles around how to tailor your gap year experience and represent that in a college application form or college essay, as well as post-college when you're looking for a job, how you can translate that into a really, really interesting hook for employers to buy into.
Yeah, you just had this amazing experience. Mm-hmm. How are you going to share that, or how are you going to capitalize on it? It's not just a good time. How do you use it to benefit you down the line?
Yeah, one of my favorite articles we have is how to transform your volunteer gap year experience on a resume, and how to make that pop. Even with graduating college, you might have had an internship or two throughout college, but it's likely you have no real strong work experience, but you can use the things that you learned and the skills that you gained on your gap year to help yourself stand out from the rest of the recent grads. I think it's really important to set goals ahead of time and either trust yourself to hold yourself accountable to those goals, or like Chris was saying, rely on your gap year leader to make sure that you're sticking to those goals, and to make sure that you're being held accountable and that you're not letting anything slip along the way. If you're planning to apply for colleges before you go, it's really important to make sure that those colleges will allow you to defer for a year. Like we said, at this point, a lot of those colleges are getting bored and actually encouraging students to take a year off. But that's just something that you want to double check if you know that you absolutely want to attend a four-year institution later on. That your school will allow for that. Like a UC
school, we're here in California. I don't believe any of them allow you to do that currently. But we've also seen students take a gap year, reapply, and get better scholarship money. So it's one of those things that it definitely holds a lot of people back, and I understand why. You put so much effort into a college application. You should definitely check if you have an institution in mind that you really want to attend. Yeah. Otherwise, you might be reapplying. I think we had someone have that issue with Berkeley. Okay.
Yeah. It would be a sad waste of time.
That's a good school.
Yeah. And so I think the last point I really wanted to touch on was I mentioned that having a goal and having those kind of milestones planned throughout the trip just to provide some validity to your program, but that absolutely should allow for flexibility and having the open-mindedness to take in those new experiences, meet new people, allow yourself to, yes, have goals, but if those decide to divert along the way, then that's totally okay and encouraged. So I think it's really important to have that nice balance of having a overall goal in mind while allowing yourself the flexibility to let that change and grow as you most assuredly will while you're on your gap year.
Awesome. Well, I'm starting to look through some questions here.
Yeah.
If you're ready for those.
I think so.
I mean, we can tag team them, but I have the iPad, so I can aim them at people. I think this first one that's coming in from India, I don't fully understand that one, so I'm gonna step back to Juliana and then move on to another one. You mentioned a few different types of students who take gap years in your conversation. Do you have real-world examples from your programs who have been successful? So we're looking for maybe an example of someone that has maybe played into the data we were talking about earlier about giving their gap year experience a 9.43 out of 10. I think on our end, absolutely, we see that all the time. People come into the UnCollege gap year wanting to do something like launch a business or discover what they want to study at the university level, or get a job. We have career finders, we have artists, people that would rather be an apprentice than dive straight into a 4-year college. And I think a lot of the stuff that bumps that up from a great experience to an amazing one that they'll never forget is community most of the time. So you're living with people that have the same drive and curiosity as you do to figure things out, and whether that be what you want to do or how to get into an industry. I think some of my favorite ones are, we've had a lot of artists in our program. The ones that come in saying, I want to be a painter, and we say, that's fantastic. Let's work on painting. But what if we introduce you to these people that work in animation and graphic design just to see if you like it?
Right.
Most of the time they like it, and then what they also find is that they can make a pretty good living doing those things, versus being a painter is a harder path to take.
Right.
It is so romantic, but it's a hard one. And then they can also study that. There's some great programs, there's some hard skills camps, and there's some great universities that teach those skills. So that's a perfect example, of people that come in and not necessarily know what they want, but definitely rate the experience very high and grab something from it.
Yeah. I think you definitely have more firsthand experience with students who are on these programs. GoOverseas typically works more with the provider side of things, so the actual gap year companies. But I do remember about a year ago, I was talking to one of our community members who had just returned from her gap year, and she had just started her first semester at Middlebury in Vermont, which is another university that really strongly supports gap years.
Right. And they actually I think they have a program themselves.
Okay. I think she did a separate third-party program, but I was Skyping with her, and she was just, gushing over how transformative her gap year experience had been, and how she was starting her freshman year of college just full of confidence and had totally transitioned. She initially wanted to be a chemist major, and then decided to, once she did her gap year in Thailand and Southeast Asia, to just completely transition. She found a brand new love of international diplomacy. Now that's what she was pursuing at college, and she said she just could not stop exclaiming how important it was that she had that time to really diversify her mind and skill set, and to try something that she had never done before. How she was just so excited to be back at college now and learn more about these great skills that she had discovered while she was on her gap year.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's incredibly inspiring.
Yeah, it feels good especially when that's your job. You get to talk to people like that every once in a while.
Absolutely.
Once again, guys, if you want to ask questions, you can tweet us at UnCollege, or post on our Facebook wall or in the event group, event page. That's what that is, an event page. Any of those places. So at UnCollege on Twitter and on Facebook. Here is one. Is there any way I can speak with students who have taken gap years in the past to learn more about their experiences? I want more information about students who have had good and bad experiences. Yeah. I think you can take that one.
Yeah. For sure. So that's what we at GoOverseas really pride ourselves on, is kind of creating that community. The reviews left on our site, we will never delete a valid review, whether that's good or bad. So that's our way of really trying to vet these programs and putting our community first. But yeah, we're happy to connect you with people who have been on gap years. We have this huge community of all kinds of international program travelers who are incredibly excited about talking about their experiences and helping other people sort through making decisions around what type of program they want to choose. So I don't know, contact me.
Yeah, right. You can get all of you.
Yeah, go to GoOverseas.com and we're happy to help you connect.
Cool. This one is from Johan Navarro. Are there any other communities of self-directed learners in the country or internationally? I assume you're kind of asking about the UnCollege program.
Yeah.
John, absolutely. It really depends on where you are. I think UnCollege spurred from unschooling, right? So self-directed, and we don't have teachers necessarily, but we have facilitators and mentors. That kind of learning can happen anywhere. As far as community, I would check online first. I think that's where you start. If you have any questions about a specific area where we might have a connection, like the UK or Australia or something like that, feel free to email us at hello@uncollege.org, and we can try and help you out. But that one's pretty wide. I think there are a lot of great resources and things we could point you to, but when it comes to specific communities, we'd have to kind of identify where. But good question. Mandy, how about this one? Do you have any recommendations for current high school students like myself who are strongly interested in taking a gap year, but absolutely have to go to college in the fall? So I think mom and dad are influencing this one.
Yeah.
Mom and dad are saying, I saved for 18 years
Right.
since you were actually before you were even born. We were saving for your college. You got into school in the fall, but they want to do something in the summer.
Yeah.
What's out there?
There's still a lot of programs, month or 2 month long programs that go over the summer with those shorter ones definitely have a volunteer aspect to them. So companies like Rustic Pathways or Carpe Diem all offer short-term summer programs all over the world. I know they have ones in Africa, ones in Oceania, and ones in South America. There's definitely still programs out there. We do, on our site, we have gap year summer programs. So it's a great place to find them.
whole category of them.
There's a lot.
GoOverseas has everything, including summer program category.
Exactly.
On the UnCollege front, today we actually announced that we have a 7-week summer program. That's 3 weeks of voyage. Right now we're just going to keep that in Mexico, in Merida, and then 4 weeks of launch here in San Francisco. So if you're interested in that, go to uncollege.org/summer. That is our 7-week option. Students can also just do the 4-week launch, which is what that's our secret sauce. That's our curriculum, and a lot of the workshops that we teach will be in there. I believe there's 20 of our workshops will be taught over the 4 weeks. So that's our summer remedy.
Awesome.
We got a couple minutes left before it's 5 o'clock here, so we'll get maybe 1 or 2 more in here, and then get out of this very warm room. Okay, here's one. My mom is hesitant to let me take a gap year because A, she doesn't think I'll be safe going abroad, and B, she doesn't think I'll go back to school. How do I convince them that this is the right decision for me? Is there someone I can talk to? There's always someone you can talk to.
Mr. Obama, I think would be a good person to talk to about
I think maybe you can get Malia on the phone and pick her brain. She seems fairly smart. In the past, I've actually encouraged students that are a right fit for a gap year. Some people get on the phone with you and they ask you a lot of gap year questions, and you can tell that they need more hand-holding than a gap year is going to give them. And they might not be the right fit, or they're definitely not the right fit for our program, which is very self-directed. But I've had them put presentations together. Like if you're really serious about doing something, there are a lot of resources on the internet that 18 or whatever 30 pages of survey that we were reading from earlier is a great source. There are stories on the internet all over the place that can kind of be your social proof that they work. But what about GoOverseas? What do they got for you?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have an article totally focused around how to convince your parents to let you go on a gap year. I'm trying to look for it now. But I mean, first of all, kudos to you for bringing it up to your parents and trying to find ways to convince them to let you go. I think that's really important. Yeah, like Chris said, I think just the more serious that you take it and the better that you present what you find, the more convinced your parents will be that you are serious and that you will provide for yourself and you will figure out a way to make sure that you're safe. And I think it's a totally reasonable thing for parents to be afraid. I mean, it's scary letting your child leave for the first time and being so far away. So I think acknowledging your parents' fears and not just blowing them off is really helpful. And then putting them in touch with actual gap year programs and providers, I think, is a really cool idea as well. And if they can just talk to the people that are going to be leading you and going to be in charge of your safety, that should alleviate a lot of fears. And, keep sending them gap year articles, keep talking to maybe other friends who have parents that are a little more lenient about it. And I think a lot of it is once parents just continually start hearing the term gap year and hearing that it is becoming a more popular trend, they'll just intrinsically start feeling a little more assured about it. It's just one of those things, since it's still so new, they have a harder time coming to terms with it.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the number of people participating in the gap year double since 2011. So it's a good time. It's a good time to be considering one, but it's still an uphill battle convincing most people that it's a good decision, despite the fact that the data shows that it is a good move. Well, cool. We're at the top of the hour here, so I think we're going to call it. Thanks everyone who submitted a question. Absolutely, go check out GoOverseas. Mandy and her whole awesome team that they have over there. There are resources on every type of international and even domestic experience that you guys want to check out. And check out the UnCollege Gap Year program, as well as the summer program that we launched today. That's uncollege.org/summer for the new program. And we'll definitely let you guys know when our next informal live event will be, where you guys can ask us questions. Any closing remarks from the Go Overseas side?
Yeah, I mean, ditto. Thanks so much for participating, and we're pretty passionate about making gap year accessible and helping as many Americans as possible understand exactly what it is. And we're really excited to answer any questions, and if there's any other follow-up questions, I'm happy to answer.
Awesome. Thanks, Internet. Have a great day.
Bye.